Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. My name is Lee Davy. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone that doesn't drink alcohol. And I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same, like right now. This is a live podcast. You've got Craig there. You've got Kim, both members of the Strive community. People might come and join as we go along. Hopefully it won't be too disruptive. I'll try to mute them as soon as I see them. But yeah, we're going to try to do a few more of these as we go along, getting people on here live that can ask questions whenever they feel like it. So Kim, Craig, anyone else who's listening, just feel free to put your hand up if you want to talk, okay? So this weekend, I was in San Diego. I was there for Brendan Burchard's influencer seminar. If you don't know who Brendan Burchard is, he's a guy who operates in the self-help industry. He's been doing it for, 10 to 20 years right now. He's the type of guy who earns, he releases a product and makes £1 billion in a week. He's that guy, right? And I remember the first time I stumbled across Brendan and Brendan's work, I actually thought he was a little bit sleazy, right? And it was funny because when Lewis Howes, who runs one of the most popular podcasts in the world, took the stage at the influence seminar, that's exactly what he said. He said, I thought this guy was super sleazy until I got to know him. And then I realized that his heart was in the right place and he really did want to influence all these people in the world. And I think where the sleaze comes in is he's selling, right? So the way that he's created a multi-billion-dollar industry is he's decided that what he's going to do is he's going to teach people to influence other people in the world. And influencing at the moment is, it's a big part of the self-help industry. It's where you go out there and you sell products, you sell courses, you become a public speaker, all kinds of stuff. Some of the similar stuff that I do at Strive, okay? And people don't like selling. Selling stinks. It's kind of like got that horrible kind of vibe to it. And I think it's something that we've all got to kind of get used to moving forward and understanding that if we're not selling something that is important to us, let's say our message, for example. So at Strive, if we're not selling our message to other strivers, then we're kind of leaving the court, and we haven't given our all. Like, imagine how great it feels right now to be a striver, right? For me, it feels absolutely amazing to be a striver. Like, me today as a striver compared to the person who used to work on the railway are two completely different animals. And I feel that if I don't teach people how I made the switch, let them learn from my mistakes through my vulnerability and explain what really worked for me, then I'm doing people a disservice, right? And that's what I got to learn a lot this weekend, with so many top talented people being on the stage saying, do not be afraid to speak out, do not be afraid to tell your story, and do not be afraid to be an influencer. And it really got me thinking about what is my role like, on the intensive we talk about the freedom module. I'd say all the time when we talk about choosing our theme, that my theme is service. I realized when I did a values exercise this weekend that service as a value didn't even appear in my top 7 values. So I've gone beyond serving people now. There's something else. Like, it's almost like serving people to me is bread and butter, right? I hope that makes sense for people. Craig works on an oil rig. He probably goes to work and everything is like bread and butter. He can do it with his feet up. He can go through the motions and he can still do a good job to a good satisfactory level. I was the same when I was on the railway. But then it comes a point where you need to step up a little bit and do something different. And for me, service is my theme probably doesn't work anymore because I'm serving people on a daily basis. I know that's going to be what I want to do for a lifetime. So I've been thinking a lot after this weekend of how I want to shape and cultivate Strive moving forward. I wrote a post on Strive to say that, the word that we use for who we are at Strive has always been to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol. Well, what a fucking mouthful, right? You talk about an elevator speech only being a couple of minutes long. Try getting that tongue twister out when someone says to you, what do you do for a living? Oh, I try to help people to become people who don't drink alcohol. It's like I'm tripping over myself, right? So I kind of had a light bulb moment that, like, I've always said that Strive is much more than helping someone to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, right? It's more than being alcohol free. It's about moving on and really making a success out of your life. You know, Craig's still thinking about it. Kim is more defined. You know, she's talking at the moment about writing a book, for example. That's come out of her work that she's done on the intensive. No, I don't want Kim to just write a book. I want Kim to be a best-selling author. You know, I'll share some tips that I learned from a woman who took the stage this weekend, who was a mother of two, who pissed her pants live on air doing a Facebook Live video, turned it into a book and sold £1 million worth of ebooks in a year. And she's a single mom with 2 kids, right? I want Kim to be that successful at some point at doing something that she loves to do. So Strive becomes so much more. Alcohol is the glue that kind of knits us all together. And the core of what we do will be helping people to overcome from that. But to be a striver is much more. It's much more about living a fulfilled life. So for me, what my role is in that as a leader is I want to be, I said to myself, oh man, I should have brought Craig and Kim and Stella and the gang. I should have brought them with me to San Diego. Like they would have grown so much through this experience. Then I said to myself, fuck it, in February when he does the High Performance Academy, I'll invite them all and we can have a Strive Live meeting. And then we can go to Influencer 2020 in October. And then I thought to myself, hang on a minute, why don't we just create Strive Live? Why don't we do it ourselves? What's stopping us? Why can't we start with just 3 of us in a casino in Berry? It doesn't matter where we are. Julian can get his guitar out and play some music. We can all have a bit of fun. Julian can actually be the comedian as well. You know, we can all have a role to play, but start growing this thing that is ours. You know, Phil said on Strive this week when we were talking about the Hall of Fame, this isn't a democracy. It is a democracy. This isn't mine, and it isn't going to grow with just my thoughts and the way that I want things to be. It has to be a kind of group community ethic. Otherwise, people are not going to stick around. You know, people need to stick around, as you'll see as I kind of go through these notes. So there was a lot of speakers on stage. We were there for 3 days. The first speaker to come on was a woman called Rachel Hollis. I'd never heard of her before, like many of the people who I'd spoken of. And Rachel Hollis is an author, an inspirational speaker. Looking at her, it looks like, you know, she's able to get up on stage and command an audience of like thousands and thousands of people. And her focus is women and empowering women. And I thought she was a great speaker, really great opening act. And just 4 notes that I wrote down of Rachel that I thought was important. The first one that she said was, if you can't be uncomfortable in a room of like-minded people, what happens when you're alone? Like, what chance do you have when you're outside of that room? Okay, so say that again. If you can't be uncomfortable in a room of like-minded people, what happens when you're alone, right? So this is why Strive is really important, because Strive is the place where we help you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, okay? But it only works if, as a striver, you're willing to put in the time and effort to feel uncomfortable. It's no, I haven't set up the platform. So an example, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was 4 weeks ago, I created a category called Know Yourself, where we answer really deep questions about our backstory, about our parents, about, you know, what we think about the meaning of life, what we think about love. And very few people have got involved with it. So for me, it's a kind of a wasted opportunity if people don't do it. And the purpose of doing it is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the reason people aren't getting involved is because they feel uncomfortable or they don't have enough time, right? One of those 2 things, okay? So I think what she said was really important, because if you cannot feel uncomfortable on Strive, then how are you going to feel when you leave Strive and you're on your own, right? And what I mean by that is these voices in your head. So very often it's the voices in your head that are stripping away your self-esteem, that are leading you to be triggered easily because you're feeling weaker. You know, psychologically, mentally, you're weaker. You've got more leaks in your game, to steal a poker analogy. But if you get used to being uncomfortable by being on strike, by talking about things that you don't normally talk about, by shining that light in the darkest recesses of your mind and allowing other people with shared empathy to look at those areas of your mind, then you are going to be more capable and more used to telling the little voice in your head to fuck off when it turns up. You're also going to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable in social situations with other people, which is critical if you're going to be a striver, because at some point you're going to have to come out of the closet and tell people that you no longer drink alcohol and try to explain what a striver is and what you are aspiring to become, which means you're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. So I noted that down because I thought it was really important. The other thing that I noted down that Rachel said was, she said, I'm on this stage now. I've like earned $1 billion, got like a multi-million following. I affect and change so many people's lives all around the world, and I can tell you how to do it. But the problem is, very few of you will stick around long enough to do anything about it. So she's saying, I've got the stage. I'll tell you all my secrets, but very few of you will ever make it because you will not stay in the game long enough. And this is the same with Strive as well. And it's not just Strive. Like, you could be at this Naked Mind, you could be Hello Sunday Morning, you could be at 1 Year No Beer, whatever community you're in. You might not be in any community, but you've just decided you want to stop drinking alcohol, right? The thing is with what Rachel is saying is, there's a lot of different variables that goes into being a success. And in this point, we're talking about being successful as being someone who doesn't drink alcohol. A lot of factors. But one of the factors, the important factors, is grit, is showing up every day. So when you're on Strive and you don't want to post on Strive, you don't want to turn it on, you can't be bothered replying to Craig or Kim's homework on the intensive, right? When you're feeling like that, it's the ones in that moment that realize that they are part of a greater community, and that actually replying to Craig when you don't feel like it is what community is all about, right? And in doing that, you kind of embed yourself like into the marrow of the Strive framework. You become a real integral member of that community. You're also, by sticking in there and posting and helping other people, is you're taking away time that resistance can fill with bad habits. So whatever good habit you create, we've only got 24 hours in a day. If you allocate an hour a day to work on Strive, that's an hour a day that you cannot do something bad. You can't do, yeah, you can eat chocolate cake while you're striving, but you get my point. Your head and your kind of philosophy and everything about you, your energy, is all about helping other people in that moment, or getting help yourself. Yeah, you cannot be doing something else while you're doing that. So I think that is super important as well. You need to stick around, because look, if you want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, you want to be a striver, it's a lifetime project. We are never ever going to achieve everything we want to in life. We need to accept that we're going to die at some point, and we will leave dreams left on the shelf full of dust. That is just what will happen, right? So it's a lifetime gig. Actually stopping alcohol and getting rid of the cravings, it depends who you are as an individual. To me, it happened very quickly. To other people, it takes a long time. James Prochaska thinks around 5 years, but you've got to stick with it, okay? Which comes to another point that Rachel Hollis says. What does she say? It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do just because it's hard. Invariably, the hard things are the things that are worth doing. So when you find Strive is becoming hard, trying to stop drinking alcohol is becoming hard, that is an indication that you are doing really well and that you need to keep going, okay? And lastly, Rachel said, start something that matters. It doesn't matter what that thing is, but it has to matter. So Kim is writing a book, or she's got an idea to write a book, but the book that she wants to write about is helping parents. So she's starting something that matters, because she's going to help parents become better parents through her book, right? Whenever you kind of think about what you want to do in terms of a meaning purpose after you've stopped drinking alcohol, And if you don't discover your meaning and purpose after you've stopped drinking alcohol, you are opening yourself up to returning to drinking because your white space will consume you. It always helps to find something that serves others. And, that's what I think is really crucial about the freedom module on the intensive. The next guy came on the stage. Let me have a drink a minute because I'm kind of going really fast here. One sec. The other guy that went on stage was a guy called Tom Bilyeu. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was one of the best speakers of the weekend. I've already started listening to his Impact Theory YouTube channel. It's really good, really exciting. He has a few programs there. He's actually got a program called Impact Theory Academy or Impact Theory University, where I think it's like $150 a month or something to be part of his academy, but he'll give it to you for free if you can't afford it, right? Because he doesn't want money to get in the way of him spreading education. Great guy. One of the things that Tom said, Tom, he started a company called Quest, which was a bar, like an energy bar that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup in there. And him and his wife made $1 billion creating this bar in a very, very fast amount of time. A super inspirational guy. He said that we need to solve problems by taking action and not thinking. Okay, and this one stopped me in its tracks a little bit, because when I first became a striver back in 2008, 2009, I polarized people as either a sleepwalker or a daydreamer. So I said, when I was drinking back in Ogmore Vale, in those days pre-2008, I was a sleepwalker. I was literally walking around planet Earth asleep, because I was just following all the rules and the framework that society had impinged upon me, that I had learned through my mentors growing up. I wasn't asking any questions. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't doing anything. I was just going through the motions. I would wake up in the morning. I'd go to work. I'd come home. I'd go to bed. I'd wake up in the morning, go to work. You know, the train spotting scene, right? That's what I was doing. So after, when I woke up and I became what I call the daydreamer, and I kind of like used these two characters when I created my first blog back in 2008, I thought that thinking was the most essential thing that had ever happened to me in becoming a striver, because I wasn't thinking before and now I was thinking. And thinking with clarity and thinking when you don't have clarity are two massively different things to me. And without the alcohol, I was able to create this clarity, and I was able to think more. And I always say to people, thinking is super important. You've got to think, you've got to think, you've got to think. You know, critical thinking is something that I want to teach my children that I never got taught when I was in school. But Tom stopped me in my tracks and said, no, it's not the thinking that actually solves the problems. It's the taking action. And if you think about it, it's so obvious, right? You know, you could actually think, and that could be a form of procrastination. It could be a form of resistance because you don't do anything. And I was pretty guilty of this in my time on the railway. You know, my CEO would come down, or my managing director would come down and he would say to me, it doesn't matter how many books you've read, Lee, what have you fucking done? You talk a good talk, but what action have you taken? So that is really important. Thinking about being a striver is very different to taking the actions needed to be a striver, right? And I just wanted to say that because I thought it was really important. He also said that patience is overrated. And this was another one that got me thinking. And I will take action at some point on it. Patience is overrated. Now, you'll hear me a lot as one of the leaders of strivers saying, when people blow up, when people drink, when people have a lapse or relapse, whatever you want to fucking call it, when people get really down on themselves, I'll say, be patient. Like, be patient, take your time. We're in this for the long haul, etc., etc., etc. What Tom Bilyeu says is, if you're going to be patient, that's fine, but just understand that while you're being patient, there's a million people passing you at high speed because they ain't got the time to be patient. They're like going to be light years ahead of you. So you're going to fall back if you're not patient, okay? So I think there needs to be a balance there. It's got me thinking, but I think there needs to be balance there. I haven't kind of like come to the end of my thinking on it. But when it comes to being a striver and the element of stopping drinking alcohol, then patience is important. It is definitely important, because getting over any addiction is going to take time, okay? However, when it comes to doing the work that you need to do in order to change your neurological connections and your belief systems around alcohol. So the work needed to believe that alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. Please don't be patient in doing that work. Don't be patient. There is a reason that the intensive was 1 session a day. And 95% of people who took the intensive and did the 1 session a day will tell you that it was hard, but they're glad they did it. The people who didn't do it in a day, they are all struggling today. They're all struggling today, right? So think about that. When you've got something that's really important in life, okay, think about how important it is that you need it in your life and put your fucking foot down. Don't be patient waiting for other people to get ahead of you. He said, do not let other people control your time, which I think is really important. Now this takes me back to something that I'm teaching people in the intensive, which I need to put more focus on, I realize, is how do you know when someone's controlling your time? Right? I'm controlling Kim and Craig's time right now because they're here live listening to me, right? Is this a good use of their time or is this a bad use of their time? Are they procrastinating or are they learning, right? Only Craig and Kim will have the answers to that. But you've got to keep thinking about yourself. What is the best use of my time? And this is why on Strive in the intensive, we talk about muda, the Japanese word for waste. Like defining in our life, what actions are we taking that add value? And what actions are we taking that don't add value at all? And what actions are we taking that add value, don't add value, but we really need them right now? A good example is I need to go to work today, writing poker articles. It doesn't add any value because I don't really want to do that, but I need to pay the bills is a good example. A good example of value that we don't need is I'm going to clean the house today. Well, that's not value adding for me because I can hire a cleaner to do that to free up my time, right? Now, when I do my Google Calendar these days, I got 2 colors I saw, purple and blue. Anything that's purple is a value-added activity. Anything that's a blue is a non-value-added activity. I don't have any wasteful activities because I've got rid of them all. So you can't understand if people are controlling your time until you understand how you're spending your time. And this is super important if you want to be a striver. You need to have some sort of system in place where you are going to bed at night, but before you go to bed, you know what you're doing the next day. Like whether you visualize on that or meditate on that is up to you. I haven't kind of got a hard and fast rule on that, but you need to know what you're doing the following day, particularly if you want a restful sleep. And then when you get up in the morning, boom, you're going for it, right? I know what I'm doing during these times. You don't have to think about it. You're just fucking getting on and doing it. And then you can review at the end of the day and go, wow, like I had an hour penciled in to write my book, and I spent an hour listening to my mum complain about the price of tuna. She stole my time. How can I prevent that from happening again in the future? He talks about how can I raise the stakes? Always asking ourselves, how can I raise the stakes? How can I raise the stakes? I keep going back to you, Kim. Sorry. Kim's writing a book, right? How can she raise the stakes? How can she get the book done quicker? How can she get the cover to be done without having to pay for it? How can she get people to help her who don't even know she exists? How can I raise the stakes? How can I raise the stakes? If you want to be successful, like how Tom says, keep raising stakes. If I want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, how can I raise the stakes? How can I raise the stakes? How can I get there in 2 months instead of 6 months? You know, a good example is eliciting criticism. I'm trying to stop drinking alcohol, but I can't do it. I've tried for 10 years. I'm really struggling. Craig, what am I doing wrong? Kim, what am I doing wrong? Okay. It's a good way of kind of raising the stakes, right? Just think about different ways that you can raise the stakes. Another thing that Tom said that really hit home for me, it hit home so badly. He said, if you're being ignored, you're not good enough yet. If you're being ignored, you're not good enough yet. So there's me going on, oh, Annie Grace has got 1 million followers. Holly Whitaker's got 1 million followers. What am I doing wrong? Is it because they're women? Is it because they did this? Is it because they did that? No, it's because I'm not fucking good enough. End of, right? I am not good enough. I need to raise my stakes. I need to up my game. If I'm serious about helping 1 million people to one day become strivers, I have to raise the stakes. I have to be obsessed. I have to be in this. I have to make it my #1 priority, which means, and this come out of this weekend, sitting down with Liza and saying, how badly do we want our dreams to succeed? What are we willing to sacrifice? And it's the same as being someone who doesn't drink alcohol. Okay. If you're on the Strive forum and you're thinking of leaving because nobody is corresponding with you, nobody is like mixing and matching with you, have a look at yourself. Are you being ignored because you're not good enough yet? And what I mean by not good enough yet is, what is the quality of your posts like? Are you like logging in every day and going, hi, it's a great day here in California? If Kim posts, hi, it's a great day in California, and I go on there while I'm on the toilet having a dump, and I see that Kim's posted that, what am I going to respond? How am I going to respond to her? Oh, hi, Kim. Hope you have a nice day. I'm going to have a nice day. That's Facebook. Strive isn't Facebook. Strive is where you come on and you say, do you know what? I'm really struggling today. I really want to write this book and I'm struggling because I'm really afraid and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. It's too big for me. If you post like that, people, strivers will come to your aid and they will give you support. But if you're not putting it in, you're not going to get it out. So have a think about that. Okay. One thing that I like, he said, your job is to leave people in awe. In awe. So Kim, don't just write a book, write a really kind of brilliant book, bearing in mind that you're probably going to have to write 4 of them before you kind of get really good. But have that mentality in mind that I want to leave people in awe. Like, set our standards high. Don't say to yourselves, I want to be someone who drinks alcohol, and if I moderate, if I slip up every now and then, that will be okay. No. Say to yourself, I'm going to take the vow that I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm going to be a striver and I'm all in, and I'm going to do everything I can to make people in awe. I want people to look at me and say, fuck me. I don't know what Lee's doing, but I want to be like Lee. Lee, what are you doing? I don't drink alcohol. That is the one reason why I'm able to be as productive as I am. Fuck me, I want to stop drinking alcohol if that's what Lee does, right? I think that's super important. What price are you willing to pay for great? I can hear Zia crying in the background. Sorry about that, folks. What price are you willing to pay for greatness? You know, again, he's talking about this in a business context, but think about this in the context of giving up drinking alcohol, okay? Later on, someone says a quote, which I'm going to say to you, which I've been using a lot lately. If you want radical change to happen in your life, you're going to have to do radical things. Okay. What price are you willing to pay for greatness? If we say that greatness is being a striver, is being someone who doesn't drink alcohol and lives a fulfilled life, what price are you willing to pay for that? Are you willing to leave the man or the woman who's holding you back? Are you willing to leave the friends who are holding you back? Are you willing to leave the environment? The last podcast that I did was on the pub, right? If we go to the pub every day, is that really conducive with being great in our eyes as being a striver? Is that something that's going to hold us back or is going to propel us forward? Right? What price are you willing to make? Are you willing to put being on Strive and doing intensive your number one priority? Are you willing? People say sometimes, I got to leave because I'm actually fed up of thinking about alcohol. No, you've got to keep thinking about it all the time. That's how you change the neurological connections, okay, that help you see that alcoholism is a visible, violent, dominant belief system. But are you willing to pay that price? I thought that was super important. He said, stop trying to win the championship and gather the skills to put in a championship winning performance. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking to me saying, oh, I don't know if I can be so lofty. I don't know if I can be in awe. I don't know if I can be so great. That is like what Lee's talking about is too much. Like he's talking about winning the championship. If that's too much for you, then kind of narrow it down a little bit. And can you gather the skills to just put in a championship winning performance? Can you do just one thing really great today? If you want to come out and tell your husband that you're a member of Strive and how important it is, how can you put a championship winning performance in to make that happen? Like, who do you need to gather as a support? What script are you going to prepare? How are you going to learn about how to influence people in order for that to come together? So I thought that was really important. I don't care who you are today. It's who you will be tomorrow that matters. Okay. I think that is a really important thing to reflect on. I don't care who you are today. It's who you'll be tomorrow that matters. That is all about, I suck today. I suck at a lot of things. And right now, one of the things that I suck at is being a striver because I can't stop drinking. But that's okay. What is important is who you're going to be tomorrow. How are you going to manage tomorrow? That is what is important. Okay. So let me just turn my Google Calendar off because I just beeped. Very unprofessional of me. Ambition without drive is nothing. And grit is everything. And grit is something that I'm going to cover, which I missed in the intensive. I need to add an assignment in there. If you think about all the people who have been successful strivers and you kind of break down, you know, and get the secrets of why they become successful. If you look at Craig, if you look at Kim, if you look at Stella, if you try to find the juice of what made it work, grit and determination and drive is in there. Without that grit to stay the course, because it's such a long period of time in order for you to kind of get over addiction and you have to go through so many challenges. If you don't have that grit, then you've got a trouble. You've got trouble on your hands. So grit is something you need to learn about. Like, how do we develop grit? And that is something that I want to help teach drivers in the future. This was another really good one that he said that I found super useful, was always find a path to yes. Now, I am a very, in my software, like my motherboard, if you like, I am a cynical, pessimistic guy with a fixed mindset, trying to be optimistic and enthusiastic with a growth mindset. Okay. That is who I am. Okay. So I don't always find a path to yes. When one of my biggest failings is when somebody, let's say my boy says to me, Dad, do me a favor, you lend me 50 quid. I will always give him the 50 quid, but I will answer him straight away by moaning and groaning about it. Dad, will you do me a favor and pick me up? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, pick me up. I'm always going to pick him up, but I moan and groan about it first. What Tom says is always find a path to yes. So when me and Liza talked about this weekend, for example, and said, look, do we really want to make a success out of our lives and what are we willing to sacrifice? We couldn't put the mines there. We couldn't turn it into a minefield. We couldn't start putting up objections and blocks. We just had to say, well, what would it look like if we said yes? What would we have to do? What would we have to change? How much would we have to earn? What would we have to sacrifice to get to yes? And then when you ask yourself those questions and you lay out the map, then you can look at it and say to yourself, I don't want to do it. And that's perfectly fine. But always start with the process-driven kind of theory of always find a path to yes. So one of Tom's was he wanted to create this Quest bar, you know, this healthy bar, but none of the manufacturers had the equipment to make his bar. So him and his team said, what's the path to yes? Like, we want to do our bar. What's the path to yes? And it was, they had to create their own equipment. And then they had to ask themselves a question, is this something we want to do? And they said yes, and it was a game changer for them, made them $1 billion. We've got to ask that question. If we want to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol, what's the path to yes? And are we willing to do it? And a lot of people fail because they say yes without first looking at the map. So they arrive at Strive full of outcome and process resistance. And if you don't know what outcome and process resistance is, listen to the Feeling Good podcast with David Burns, or take the intensive where we talk about it. They are so drowning in resistance. They really think that they want to do this and they want to be a striver, but they've got so much resistance because they haven't looked at the map. And if they looked at the map before, they would say to themselves, fuck it, I'm just going to keep on drinking. Have another swig a sec. I'm going to run to about 90 minutes here, folks, just to let you know. Feel free to leave if you're fed up with me at any time. The next speaker was a guy called Trent Shelton. He was a former NFL star. He created a movement called Rehab Time. It was really cute. He showed his first ever YouTube video where he was like super young, just jumping on there, talking for a couple of minutes. And now he's really successful. He talked about haters. He said, how many people in the audience get hate when they put product out there? So if Kim writes a book, using Kim as the example again, is everyone going to like Kim's book, or are some people going to hate it? Like, let's say if Kim creates a Twitter platform for a book launch, How many people are going to read her free copy and then write on Twitter, it's shit? Like, I can't tell you how many times I write a poker article, post it, and someone says, who wrote this garbage? It happens all the time, right? What Trent Shelton said, a couple of things was, first of all, you shouldn't be reading those posts. It's very unusual that you're going to get constructive feedback from them. So you're kind of just wasting your time and assessing why you're doing that. It's probably ego driven. I know that I do that. Like when an episode of I Am High Stakes Poker airs, which is something that I've produced and done in the poker industry, I get really excited, but it's only as an ego thing. I know it is. I'm only looking to see, oh, people think I'm great, which is the wrong way of thinking about things, right? But what he said was really interesting was, if they are commenting, then they follow you. So why are they following you? So he said that haters are just confused supporters. So I want you to take that philosophy, that mindset, to your decision to be a striver. Because look, I am now spending my time with you all talking about this podcast. This podcast is really important to me. It's been running for 5-6 years. It's an essential part of my life. I don't think my mum and dad even know it exists. I don't think they even know it exists. Whenever I try to talk about what I do for a living, my parents don't want to know. They switch off like this. Whenever they talk to someone about what I do, they'll tell them that I work in the poker industry. They will not tell them that I help people to become strivers. That is something that they won't go there. But it doesn't mean that they hate what I do. They're confused supporters, right? They support me because they're my parents, but they're confused. They don't understand how to support me. They don't know how to show up. So when you're coming out, or before you've come out, and you're getting a lot of shit and you don't think you're getting your support off your spouse or your friends, just think they're not hating you. They're confused supporters. I think that will help you out if you change your mindset on that. He also said, when someone stereotypes you, okay, when someone stereotypes you, you just make sure that you never stereotype anyone else in the same way again. Don't defend yourself. Don't go into full-on alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. Don't you know you're a fucking idiot for drinking? Just say to yourself, wow, that fucking hurts. And I am not going to do that to somebody else again because I know what it feels like. I think that is a really important growth lesson. Being a striver is all about being a role model. And if you could get that mentality into your head and you're not seen as stereotyping people, then your children will not stereotype people, or they're less likely to, for example. So I thought it was pretty cool. He also said your transparency will lead to your transformation. Your transparency will lead to your transformation. You're not going to make a difference in the world, and being a striver is all about making a difference in the world. You're not going to make a difference by locking yourself in your room and not having a voice. Okay? And when you have a voice, it's really important that people care about what you're talking about and that they want to listen to you. And sorry, folks, people aren't very often interested in a good luck story. They're more interested in the shit you're going through, because that's where they can connect. So I think it's Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. He starts with, I'm in the helicopter going to wherever it is for his event. And he looks down and he sees, holy shit, there's like too much traffic. No one's going to get to my event. And then the pilot says, no, they're the people going to your event. I couldn't relate to that. I'm Lee Davy of Morvale. I can't relate to that. But if Tony Robbins turns around and tells me that he was in his kitchen eating pizzas and puking up because he's afraid of facing the world, then I can appease to that. So like being transparent and sharing the most difficult things about your life, again, is really important. It will lead to your transformation. It will unlock so many doors for you. So when you're on Strive, please think about what we're trying to do, about this emphasis on being uncomfortable, about being vulnerable. You know, don't say, why is Lee asking these really uncomfortable questions? Why is he poking me and prodding me to go deeper? It's because I believe, like Trent Shelton, your transparency will lead to your transformation. He also said, don't afraid to start small. Okay, don't afraid to start small. Even though we want to lead people in awe, even though we want to lead to greatness, our perfection very often will stop us from starting. Now, if we use an alcohol analogy, worrying that if we tell our friends that we're going to be a striver and we're not going to drink anymore, and we worry that we're going to look like a dickhead if we do drink, then that is going to stop us from becoming a striver. It's going to stop us from starting. Can you see that? We're going to say to ourselves, I can't tell these people that I'm not going to stop drinking because I know I'm not going to be able to do it, because we're thinking perfectionism. So maybe we need to boil it down a little bit, and we need to stay, I'm not going to drink today, right? The old Alcoholics Anonymous adage really works well here, right? Really works well here. Or alternatively, turn around and say to your friends and your family, that the people that are really important to you in your inner circle, your allies, to quote a phrase from the intensive work in the Freedom module, say to them, I'm going to be a striver. This is what it looks like. And part of the process means that I might drink if I don't get the support or develop the skills as quickly enough as I want. And there's a high degree of people who are likely to drink. Actually, more people are likely to drink than not drink. So please expect it to happen. And you accept that in yourselves. And if you accept it in yourselves, then you're not a failure. There's no perfectionism there. So start small. Same with Kim. If you go outside of the alcohol, you might not have to write a book, Kim. Maybe you just need to write a blog post. Maybe you just need to, next time you write a post on Strive, make it intentional about something and put your heart and soul into it as if a reader is buying it. That is starting small, okay? Don't bring a towel. Because if you don't bring a towel, you can't throw it in. I love that. I don't know how that translates itself, but I thought that was amazing. Don't bring a towel so you can't throw it in. This goes back to grit, doesn't it? It goes back to grit. It goes back to determination. It's really super important, because we all know, all the strivers know, that the longer you can go without drinking, the easier it is and the more likely you are to create these neurological connections that get you to believe that alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system quicker, so you don't crave. So it's really important that you don't drink if you can help it. So don't throw the towel in. Don't bring the fucking towel. It's all centered around the vow and the importance around the vow, in my opinion, okay? Will you still have commitment a year from now, he said. And he doubted that many people would. Same as Rachel Hollis. I can teach you everything you want to learn, but will you stick around long enough to learn it? Trent Shelton said, will you have that commitment in a year from now? So you've got to ask yourself when you join Strive, am I going to still be wanting to do this? Also, when you join Strive, so I just come away from the Influence seminar and I'm on like fucking cloud nine, and I want to change the world. I've got all these kind of wonderful vibes and ideas running through me. But slowly, as every day goes on, if I don't keep my foot on the gas pedal, it's going to go down and down and down. And I'm the type of person who can keep my foot on the gas pedal. Like, I can manage my anxiety. I can manage my stress. I'm not going to have an heart attack. I'm not going to fall over. I'm not going to go do lally. Some people are different. They might need to take the foot off the gas a little bit. But keeping that momentum is really important. Remember, I said when I became a striver, it wasn't because I stopped drinking alcohol. It's because I quit my job. I kept the monumental change moving, you know? So you've got to ask yourself when you come to Strive, wow, it's wonderful. I just introduced myself. 150 people have said I'm fantastic. I just started assignment 1 on the intensive, but are you going to be there 6 months down the line in assignment 94? That's what you need to be thinking about when you join something like this. And what is the reason you do the thing you do? What is the reason you want to be a vegan? What is the reason that you want to be a striver? Without a good enough reason, you will fail. And you need to make that reason bigger than yourself. Okay? Can you hear that? Donk, 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 donk. Yeah, it's my battery. Okay. Bollocks. 1 second. The sound quality gone down? Oh, you can hear me okay? Okay, cool. All right. Roger Love was the next guest on. Roger Love is a top vocal coach. This guy inspired me in so many different ways and so many different reasons. He's the guy that teaches singers how to sing and stuff, right? But 3 quick points that I thought was really important. He said, you're not born with the voice you have. So a lot of us will say, oh, I don't want to do a podcast because I don't like the sound of my voice. But what he gets you to know is you was never born with that voice. So if you've got a dad who talks like that, and you're a boy, then when you grow up, you're going to talk like that. Or if you've got a mum who talks really squeaky like that, then when you grow up, you're going to talk really squeaky. But he said that is just a kind of inherent behavior that we have of picking up sounds of our parents. We talk a lot about the influence of being a good role model. I never would have thought the voice would have been in there. And he can teach you through some simple exercises on lowering your jaw, diaphragmatic breathing, how you adjust your Adam's apple to actually change the way you talk. And he calls this creating the voice you want to have moving forward. So at 44, I can have a different voice. But he was talking physically, but I like the metaphorical angle of that. About, yeah, I used to work on a ranch. Yeah, I used to do the accounts, but now I'm an author. Yeah, I used to work on the oil rigs, but now I'm a professional poker player. Yeah, I used to work on the railway, but now I'm a leader of a group of strivers who want to live fulfilled lives. You can change your voice at any time you want. You're not stuck with it. Okay? I think that was really important. He also said that speaking is a physical connection. Like you're talking like this, now I'm talking like this, and something is coming out of my mouth and it is actually going into your ears, and and there's an energy transference here. So speaking is a physical connection. So I thought that was really important. And he also said people rarely remember words. It's the tone and emotion. Okay. Now, words are really important. And earlier on, I found an album on Spotify from 1999 by Marion. And I played it this morning and I knew every word because I loved it back in the day. Just pogoing around the house, drinking, listening to Marion. Like words do stick in there. They are important. When we write, they're important, all that kind of stuff. But I think he's got something here that the tone and the emotion outrides that. So let's say you write a script of how you're going to come out as a striver with your friends and family. The words are less important than your body language, your tone, and the emotion of the delivery. So, I'm going to get in touch with this guy, see if we can get him on the podcast. I think there's something that we can do in Strive to implement more learning around this to help people have more body language, because so many people succumb to peer pressure because they don't have the right body language. So, for example, if I walk into a pub and someone asks me if I want a drink, my body language screams, I'm a striver, I don't want to drink, it's a fucking stupid thing, don't ask me stupid questions. But if I didn't stand with my shoulders held up high, if I didn't have the knowledge cemented in my brain, if I didn't have a confident aura, then just like bullies in the playground in school, people will take the piss. I have very few people now that will take the piss out of me if I'm not drinking. Very few. And they're rarely in my life, right? So body language is really important. There was a soul coach, just to prove that Brendon Burchard's not all about like making money and stuff. There was a soul coach called Rha Goddess who helps people to understand that they don't need permission from anybody to succeed in life, and to understand that needing that permission is holding you back. And one of the things that she said was, what are you ashamed of wanting? So if you're listening to this, I would make a little note and answer this question. What are you ashamed of wanting? Okay, because it's shame that is acting as the biggest blocker in becoming a striver. I'm seeing that all the time. What is it that you're ashamed of? What is it you're ashamed of wanting? Like, are you ashamed of wanting a threesome because you're happily married? Are you ashamed of being a multimillionaire and selling something because you don't want people to feel that money is the wrong motivator? What is it you're ashamed of? I thought that was a really good question by Rha Goddess. Guy called Dean Graziosi. He's like a real estate gazillionaire. He came on a few notes I took down. One was give people what they need. Don't give people what they want. So that's something that I need to wrap my head around with Strive. So a lot of people don't like the conflict or the tough questions. And this goes down to personality type, I think, because I'm a red as a leader, and it's more likely that a red is going to kind of say, no, this is what you need. not what you want, and the blues and the whites are less likely to go up there. So I think understanding personality is really important in terms of communicating. But sometimes as a leader, and Craig's an ambassador here, and hopefully Kim will be one day. So it's really important for us as leaders to understand this. Sometimes we need to give people what they need and not what they want, because they don't know what they need. And that is really important for people who are new onto Strive, or people who are really struggling to stop drinking alcohol, right? There'll be something that they need that they're not aware that they need, or they really need a push. It's just not fucking sinking in, right? So that was really important to me. What is doing what I want to do? Oh, who is doing this? Come up, Tom Bilyeu this come up with, and Dean Graziosi. What is it you want to do in life? Okay, so let's say you want to stop drinking alcohol. All right, you don't want to be like a super duper human being. You just want to stop drinking alcohol, right? What is it you want to do? Who do you know that has achieved that? Well, if you're listening to this, you know I have. You know Kim has. You know Craig has. What can you do to get them to work with you to help you? Right? So why aren't more people emailing me directly and saying, Lee, help me stop drinking alcohol? Right? Why isn't that happening? If Kim wants to be an author, then who does she want to be like? Who is the author that she wants to be? Or maybe she'll think to herself, because her choice is parenting, who is the parent that she wants to embody in her book, the spirit of the parent that she wants to put in her book? Who is that person? And how can she learn from them? Maybe she goes to the person and she asks to work with them for free for 3 months. What if they turn around and said yes? How much knowledge and understanding on parenting would she get? And would it be worth the sacrifice of working for free for 3 months? If you want to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol and you want me to help you, and I'm doing this for a living every day, what could you do to get more involved in my life so you can pick up and learn of the things that I'm doing that can help you to become a striver? I thought that was super important. An observation of mine. There were 2,200 people in the audience, and I saw the same people sitting in the same seats every day. And I sat in the same seat every day, or tried to. And I'm going to write a post about it, but it really hammered home this habitual way of being that we have as human beings, and how we have to step outside of that. First, recognize that it's happening, but then step outside of that and say, well, what would happen if I sat somewhere else? What would happen if I went for a run in a different direction? What would happen if I walked somewhere else? To develop the habit of not being stuck, as what I said earlier on, as being a sleepwalker. Be intentional about everything. Like this was, I think this was one of the top 3 things that I learned throughout the whole weekend that I come away from. Very often I'll jump on Strive and I will start answering posts when I'm in the line waiting to get into an influence seminar, or I'm sitting in a dentist chair, or, you know, I've got 5 minutes to spare in the house or whatever. I'll flick on the video and just do a podcast, and I'll just waffle on and just go with the flow with it, you know. And I'm good at that, and I like doing that. I don't always like scripts, but you've got to ask yourself, why don't I like scripts? And maybe the fact that I don't like scripts is because it's hard work, that I have to write it, I have to think about it, I have to learn about it. So maybe it's easier if I don't do that and I just come on and waffle. But then by waffling, sometimes I'm not as intentional as I can be. And if I'm not as intentional as I can be, the message that I'm relaying isn't as powerful as it can be. And that means I'm wasting time. So if I put an hour aside to do a podcast, then I need to be as intentional as I can during that hour. And that means more preparation. So I think there's some mileage here in slowing down and learning mindfulness, but looking at your calendar and when you're scheduling your day, to give yourselves maybe more time than you need to do something so you can be intentional. And then over time, as you get better at being intentional, you can narrow that time window. So you can do things quicker when you're more able to do it rather than trying to do things quicker too soon. So same with if you want to be a striver and you want to stop drinking alcohol, how can you put intention into that to make sure that everything you do has that weight of intention? So if you're going to go out on a Saturday night with your mates and you're into day 3, how can you do that intentionally? Like, how can you plan ahead knowing that it is very unlikely you're going to drink because you're going out on Saturday night with an intention not to drink? Not, I'm going to go out Saturday night and I hope I don't drink, but an intention. And one last quote that Dean Graziosi said, which was quite interesting, was, they don't build statues of critics, going back to the old haters thing. Natalie Hodson was on stage. This is a woman I said is quite remarkable. She is a mother of 2, single mother of 2, whose own mother stole her identity when she was younger. And she had to testify against her mother. Otherwise, she would have had to go to prison. And her mother went to prison because she had to testify against her. It's quite an amazing case. She just started a blog like most people do these days. And she started a blog and she started writing and posting about stuff. And one day someone came up to her and said, Natalie, I wish I could look like you, because she was kind of like into the working out space. And Natalie says, what do you mean? You look beautiful. You are like me. And the woman said, well, no, I'm not. And she showed her her stretch marks after having children. And Natalie said, well, I have stretch marks. And she said, well, you've never blogged about it. So the next day, Natalie did a video where she showed it. She stood up straight. Her six-pack was toned. But if she leant over, you'd see all the stretch marks through having children. And she said, she put that video on and it boomed. It took her, she ended up with 150,000 added Facebook followers for her business. What did she do there? She was being vulnerable, wasn't she? She was saying to her audience, hey, I have stretch marks and it's okay to have stretch marks. And having stretch marks might suck, it might feel really bad, but it isn't going to stop you from doing what you want to do, because I do fitness and do videos with showing my belly off, right? So, and then she was doing a video one day because she's had children, and Kim probably will laugh at this. She peed her pants, right? Like so many women who have children, when they get excited or they cough or they do exercise, they pee her pants. She peed herself. So she looked into why she peed herself and she wrote an ebook about it, sold it for $37. And in 1 year, she earned $1 million. She's earned $10 million, Kim, writing 8 ebooks. Incredible, right? And she was all about vulnerability and shame, right? She said, and this got me thinking about, as I go through my life and I talk to people, I'll get this said to me a lot. I don't know if you get this, folks, but I get this a lot. People say to me, Lee, stop beating yourself up. Stop being too hard on yourself. You're doing really well. And it really fucking annoys me. And I don't know why it annoys. I used to think it was ego. I used to think, what the fuck are you telling me not to beat myself up, be too hard on myself? I'm good. Like I don't need to knock my status peg down. But I realized that it's not about ego. It's because my vulnerability in that moment is not being recognized. Like, I'm being vulnerable. And because I'm being vulnerable, I'm very courageous and brave, and I'm being a striver. Like I'm operating at a higher energetic frequency because I'm being vulnerable. So when you tell me not to beat myself up or not to be too hard on myself, you're not getting it. Okay? And I don't need to allow that to affect me or to impact me. I don't even have to respond to it. Now I'm aware of it. Yeah? It's vulnerability. I'm being vulnerable. And that is super cool that you're doing that. She talked about owning your story so they don't own you. And she did the video, check it out on YouTube, of Eminem in 8 Mile. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie 8 Mile, where because he was white, all the black rappers were taking a mickey out of him in their raps lyrically. Like Eminem, you know, like he's a white boy, crappy pussy, like lives in a trailer trash, all that kind of stuff. So what Eminem did was he thought to himself, what is it they're going to say that's going to rip me down? And then he lyrically added them into his rap and blurted it out to them, so they couldn't use his past against him. And he had so much power in that. And I haven't unpacked what that means for Strive, but it feels and resonates to me like it's really important. That if we own our stories and we talk about our backstories and we tell people about our suffering and we tell people that we fucked this and that up, but we are now a striver and all the good things that happen because we strive, then it's less likely that a confused supporter is going to use that against us because there's no mileage, there's no weapons. We've taken the arrows from their quiver. So I thought it was important. One aspect she said here that Kim might find interesting. Me and Kim have been having a dialogue on Strive about what constitutes oversharing. And what Natalie said was, share your scars, but don't share your wounds. Because some people are not ready for the emotional intensity of your wounds, right? So you've got to allow, what Natalie was basically saying was one good key habit that you can do if you want to be successful, and I've learned this as well on Bernadette Jiwa's story course, is to go back to the time you were born, to the time you are now, and list all the most important milestone moments in your life. And what you'll have is a list of fuck-ups, a list of things that you did wrong. You'll have a list of things that you did right as well, but you'll have a lot of bad things in there as well, right? Now, if you look back on that, then you can pick any story. Like Kim at the moment is going to write a parenting book. She can look back on her story and she can pick a story of when she realized that her son had learning difficulties. She wanted to homeschool him, but there was no way of getting any help or support because she lives so far from everyone else. Kim lives on the fucking moon, as far as you all should know, right? She lives way out in the outback. And she really struggled to be able to provide the help and support she needed for her son. Now, talking about it back then, that might have been a wound for Kim, but now it's a scar. It's like she's gone through it and she's learned from it and she's implemented it and been a success. So now she can implement that story. She can talk about it with more confidence, and that confidence will come across in the person who's listening, and then they will react better to it. But if you're falling apart, if you say to your partner, oh, I'm on Strive and I'm fucking falling apart and I'm going to fucking jump off a cliff and all this kind of stuff, right? If you're really kind of like, it's really difficult for you, then what's going to happen? The person you're talking to is going to get the fuck out of Dodge, and they're not going to want to hear it. They're gonna say, oh, yeah. Oh, should we watch Peaky Blinders then? They're not going to want to know. But if it's a scar, it will be delivered differently. Unless you can deliver your stories that you're still going through with the same confidence as you can deliver your scars. So that's an area where I excel in. Like if I'm fucking up right now, if I'm at the lowest ebb of my life, if I'm really destroying my relationships, I'm able to talk to you about it without falling apart. I'm able to talk to you about it with confidence, right? If you can do that, then go for it. But if not, concentrate on your scars, not on your wounds. And that message, please take it on board. Anybody who's on Strive, all 25, 26 of you, or anybody who wants to come on, unless you are comfortable talking about these things, don't. And although I want you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, start small. Don't go banging into the rape scene that happened when you was 4 or 5. If that's going to make you feel really uncomfortable and put you into your shell and set you back, think about the last time you fell down the stairs or something went wrong that is uncomfortable to you. I don't know, you went out for a night and you fell over and your knickers went over your head. Start small. And don't be afraid of vulnerability, right? Don't be afraid of vulnerability. Realize that being vulnerable is really uncomfortable, but unless you want to be really uncomfortable your entire life, you're never going to outrun vulnerability. It's always going to be there. So the antidote from vulnerability, as prescribed by Brené Brown, the doctor, Lord Master of vulnerability, is shame, right? Is to talk about your shame. The reason that you don't want to go into vulnerability is because you feel ashamed. But by talking about your shame with like-minded people who you trust and have your back, like on Strive, they no longer are worried about being vulnerable because you're talking about everything. You're talking about your shame. And also think on Strive that you are helping other people by talking about your vulnerability. So if you can't do it for yourself, try to think if you can do it for somebody else. Okay. There was a speaker called Eric Thomas, or ET for short. And this guy had me crying. You know, I cried a few times, but this guy really made me feel so small in a really good way. He tells a story about how his wife gets lost. She rings him up and says, I'm lost. And he has a little joke and says, what do you mean you're lost? We live in wherever he lives. You cannot possibly get lost. And he gets in a cab and meets her. And she tells him that she can't remember shit. So he takes her to the hospital and they find a lot of like shadows on her brain. And they diagnose with multiple sclerosis. And she turns around at one point and says to him, I can't believe this has happened while your career's on the rise. Your career's on the rise. You're doing things you never thought you would do. And now I'm in a wheelchair. And he turns around and says, woman, don't you remember my vow in sickness and in health? It will be my honor to push your fucking wheelchair. And I was like, I just burst out crying because I realized in that moment, I'm not stepping up as a husband. I'm not stepping up. I'm not putting my wife first. Here is a man putting his wife first. Forget the multi-millions, forget the business, forget the speaking. I want to push you in your wheelchair before anything. I'm not there. So if you think about, for example, Liza wanting to live in California and me wanting to live in the UK, Liza is the type of person who is likely to do what I want to do, to put me first. And I have to recognize and step up that my woman wants to live in California. And if she wants to live in California, then the California is where she'll live. This is a game changer for me. And it's going to take me some time to get into it because I, at my motherboard core, I'm a very selfish, ego-driven, person-centered person. It's all about me. I don't listen to people. I don't think about people. I'm just fucking tunnel vision doing what I'm doing. And I need to wake the fuck up. And people like Eric really helped me. He said, because he came from nothing, that you can have average skill, but what will always override that is phenomenal will. Average skill, phenomenal will. This guy is like a powerhouse. Like if you listen to this guy talk, and please check him out, Eric Thomas, if you listen to his talks, you will say to yourself, holy shit, I'm not doing enough. He asked, who are you running with? Who are you running with? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Super important if you want to be a striver. Like if you're surrounding yourself with people who are getting pissed every day, the likelihood is you're going to get pissed. If you want to be successful, but you're living with people who are quite happy to tread the path of least resistance, you're not going to be successful. So you need to start thinking about who you're running with and couple that with what do you want to achieve in life and what do you want to become? And then what are you willing to sacrifice? I've told you that when I became a striver in 2008, I lost everything. I lost my wife. I lost my kid. I lost every single one of my friends. I cannot begin to tell you how alone I was. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me at the time, but I was alone. It was just fucking me. I was in my mother's fucking bedroom. I remember looking around at 35 years of age, crying my eyes out because I was the same bedroom in the same bed that I had left when I was 18. And I remember thinking, what have I achieved? I've got nothing. Now, I still love those guys. They just recently added me to a WhatsApp group and said, hey, Lee, can you come and play football with us? Now, if I was living in the UK, I'd go and play football with them. And I would go to the pub afterwards as well and be with them and having a laugh and a joke while he had a few pints. And I would disappear when everyone got drunk. But then they're not the people who are going to move me forward and make me more successful. And they will all be the first people to agree with that because they're quite happy being on the path of least resistance. Not everybody wants to be a world superstar. And none of my friends when I lived in Ogmore Vale had the ambition to do that. So I can still love my friends and like my friends and hook up with them every now and then, but I don't need to make them the core allies that are going to move me forward, because it won't happen. And I will always feel like I'm an imposter. And I don't want to feel like an imposter. I want to be me. So it's important that I surround myself with people who are like me. So first figure out who you are. And once you've figured out who you are, then you will start to give off that energy vibe and you will start to attract the right people. Okay, I think that's super important. What am I not willing to do to be great? We've heard something like that before. He said, the wealthy will do what the poor won't do. The wealthy will do what the poor won't do. Now, obviously, he's talking about money, but wealth, metaphorically speaking, can come in a wide range of different formats. If we think about being a striver, being a wealthy striver is someone who's got 5 to 10 years of not drinking behind their belt, and they're still nowhere near the path of least resistance, plowing on, trying to live a fulfilled life. The poor, in this metaphorical instance, are the people who are still on the path of least resistance, every now and then taking their foot off it, but keep going back. Yeah? So the wealthy will do what the poor won't. So the poor need to look at the wealthy and say, what are they doing? What is working for them? What is working for Craig? What worked for Kim? What is working for John? What is working for Stella? Ask them what they did. And then, most important, take action. Just follow what they did. When I became a striver, I just followed what Alan Carr did. Alan Carr said, think like this. I thought like that. I stopped drinking. That was it. Fucking simple. It's a lot more complex putting it all together and trying to kind of teach people it. But in general, that's all that happened. Alan Carr says this, I'm going to believe it, right? I think that is really important. You've always got to vow to always do your best. Always do your best. How do you know you're doing your best if you don't wake up in the morning, write out some sort of plan or the night before, and then at the end of the night, review what you've done? If you don't do that, if you don't have that system in place, how do you know if you've done your best? Really get analytical, really get intentional on how you spend your day. What are your responsibilities? Just write that question down and answer it sometime, folks. What are your responsibilities? What do you want your responsibilities to be? A lot of you will be drinking alcohol because you don't want responsibilities. I'm sorry, folks. If you want to be a striver, you've got to have responsibilities. You've got to take that on. And we'll help you with that, but you've got to have responsibilities, because those responsibilities will motivate you to become a striver. They will motivate you for greatness. But without responsibility, you're nothing. You're just bobbing along in an ocean without an oar. Who is counting on you? If you cannot make the change for yourself, and look, we have a section on striving, the intensive and the taster, where we say, who are you doing this for? And we want to see people saying, I'm doing this for me. We want to see that. But it doesn't always work for people. There's always been a catalyst behind my change. Who is counting on you? My wife is counting on me. Going back to this guy with the multiple sclerosis, his wife is counting on him. My wife is counting on me right now. While she's taking care of my children, she is counting on me to produce the kind of life that we want to have. Right? Now, knowing that she's counting on me, doesn't that provide an extra emphasis to be great, to leave people in awe, to really put in the grit and the work and the determination? Who is counting on you to be a striver? Who is counting on you to be free of alcohol? Think about that and be there for them. Make it for them. Let's not allow our children are going to grow up and are very likely going to drink because of alcoholism. And we have no control over that. But don't be the fucking person that puts the pint in their hand because that's what you do. Let them do it because they saw an ad. Let them do it because they saw a gin advert on the back of a plane seat going to Barcelona. Don't let them do it because you made it acceptable and normal and pleasurable to drink alcohol. Who is counting on you? And hold yourself accountable. Let's stop blaming people for all the reasons why we're not someone who doesn't drink alcohol, but for reasons we're not a striver. Well, I would be a striver if my boyfriend stopped drinking. I would be a striver if my husband stopped drinking. I would be a striver if I didn't have too much work to do and I would be able to get on the intensive. Let's hold yourself accountable. You still with me, folks? I got a few more left. Anthony Trucks, former NFL player, foster kid, now works in shifting people's identity. He talked about decision fatigue. Super important, I think. Super important. Something that Liza kind of inflicts Liza sometimes. Decision fatigue. How many of you in life, when you have a decision on whether to watch The Joker or whether to watch Maleficent in the cinema, kind of like go all about it for like 5 minutes on which decision you're going to make in order who you're going to watch? Like when you're in a restaurant, how quick are you at ordering your food and how long does it take you to figure out what you want to order? How many of you order something and then change your mind 2 or 3 times? How many of you have got the waiter standing there with a pen in their hand, like looking at you? Like the amount of time it makes it takes you to make a decision is fatiguing you. Like it's slowing you down, right? So like people who say, should I stay on Strive or not? I don't know if I should stay. I don't know if I'm getting a value. I don't know if this person is helping me or not, blah, 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 blah. Here's my advice. Stop thinking about it and just stay. It's £40 a month, for fuck's sake. I know beggars down the street who will earn more than £40 a month, and all they do is fucking sit there with a Starbucks cup in front of them, and people chuck money in, and they get £40 a month. Let's not kid ourselves that the decision about whether or not on Strive or not is whether it's 40 quid. Like, make life easy. Yes, I want to be on Strive. No, I don't want to be on Strive. I'm hoping you will say yes and just let the process trust. Trust in me, trust in the Strive teams, trust in your peers, and stay. But don't fucking dilly-dally about it, right? Decision fatigue. I thought that was really important. He talked about what you create creates you. What you create creates you. I'm not going to go into that in any too depth, but I thought that was really important. He said your ego protects your identity. We talk about this in the intensive, but when you stop yourself from doing certain things, it's because your ego likes who you are right now. It knows and understands who you are. Even if you're a fuck up who's drinking all the time, that just cannot fucking get going, as painful as that is, your ego likes it. It protects it because it abhors change. It hates change. So recognize that your ego is protecting your identity, and just be aware of that, okay? Because this guy's all about creating new identities, and he has 7 operational steps of identity. I won't go into them here, but it's like, identify what your identity anchors are, what your beliefs are, what your stories or paradigms are, what your common feelings are, what actions do you take, what are your normal outcomes, and what is your environment like? All those 7 things will constitute your identity. And we do a lot of work around identity, don't we, in the intensive, so we can recognize and understand who we are and why we're making the decisions we are. I think Anthony Trucks delivers his message in a more structured way with more framework, so I'm going to look at doing that. He talks about the importance of stretching. So like when you're going to do exercise, you're going to stretch first. And there's a pain in that stretch, but you have to lean into it in order for you to get yourself ready. So he says, for example, when you go to work and you slave in a job for 12 hours you don't like, and then you come home and you have to create, like that work is your stretch. That's your stretch. You've got to get used to stretching. You've got to don't give up when the pain of the stretch. You've got to go through that pain. You've got to keep stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching. It's the old 1 day at a time drinking mentality. You know, being vulnerable once on Strive, that's a stretch. So you've got to get used to being stretching. When people lack progress, they start questioning their purpose. When people lack progress, they start questioning their purpose. So if you arrive on Strive in a blaze of glory, you introduce yourself, everyone says how fantastic you are, you post a couple of times, and then you stop. And then you start saying to yourself, this doesn't work for me. This group doesn't work for me. This philosophy doesn't work for me. And now you lose the purpose of why you're there, to be a striver, and then you quit and you leave. So progress is really important. Keeping that momentum going is really important. Like, what are your habits is a question that he asked. Again, you don't know what your habits are unless you're analyzing what you're doing on a daily basis. And for every good habit you have, it's more difficult for a bad habit to sneak in there. This is a really good one. The next level of what you want comes with the next level of who you are. The next level of what you want comes with the next level of who you are. So there are many levels that you can achieve in life, but you won't maybe know what they are or what you're capable of until you reach the next level. So always trust in a process that each level you go up to, you're going to learn more about who you are and what your capabilities are. So for example, yesterday, the first episode of a TV show that I'm been producing and writing landed on my desk. I've never done anything like that before in my life. Ever, ever, ever. It's not like they've given it to a seasoned scriptwriter. I've never written anything like that before in my life. I've never done it. But because I've been going up the levels since I became a striver in 2008, the fear of writing that script doesn't overwhelm me. It exists, but I just turn the volume down. I literally say to the fear, fuck off. I know I'm going to do a fucking great job because I always do. And you know what? If I don't, the next script that I do will be better. And the next one will be better and better and better and better, right? It's the same as when you want to become a striver. Oh, I drank today. I went 5 days and I drank. Right, well, go on to Strive and post in triggers. And then learn from that and then move up a level. Whoa, I didn't realize I could write in triggers. I didn't realize I could accept criticism and learn from it. And then you keep going and you keep going. You are the only one that can do the work. You are the only one, the important work. So delegation is super important. If you want to achieve your dreams and your goals and be a striver, you've got to learn to trust people and delegate work and activities. You know, me and Kim had this debate the other day about what value-added waste and non-value-added waste is. You know, I'm the type of guy who's like, right, I don't want to clean anything. Like, I don't want to clean anyone. I can get people to do that work for me. But when it comes to like how I'm going to lead a mass group of community of people and help them quit drinking alcohol, that is what I can do that myself. I have to do that work. I have to read the books. I have to attend the seminars. I have to listen to the podcasts. I have to talk to people. I have to test. I have to do that work. When it comes to being a striver, you're the only person who can do the work to stop drinking alcohol. Nobody else can do that for you. Like going back to what we said, radical change means you have to do radical things. You're the only person who can do that. You're the only person who can tell the guy in your life, I'm going to leave you if you don't uphold my values. And one of my values is I don't want you to be a pisshead anymore. That's not what I want in my life. Only you can do that. Only you can have that conversation. We can help you on Strive. And that's why Strive exists. We can help you create the script to develop the tone and the body language, but we can't do that work. You also did a brilliant thing about, said we all have to update our software. Again, something we do on the intensive. We talk about hardware and software. We have to update our software. And he said about a Mac, anyone who's got a Mac, he said, we have the update thing that comes in the top corner of our Mac all the time. And he says, do you want to update now, next week, or tonight? And very often, me in particular, you always click update later. And then if you keep updating later, what do you get? You get the spinning wheel of death. And your computer fucking blows up. And it's like that in life. If you keep ignoring the fact that you need to update yourself and up-level yourself and upgrade yourself, the spinning wheel of death will get you, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you. Jamie Marie Kern Lima. Check this woman out. Absolutely amazing. She started her own cosmetics brand called It Cosmetics in her house with her husband. First thing she did, which is really important from a business perspective and a meaning and purpose dream perspective, is her and her husband realized that they could create a concealer for women. Real women, not like models, you know, the women who have bags under their eyes and acne and all that kind of stuff. And they both quit their jobs and said, we're going to do this for life. And that intensity of two people just focusing on one thing, unbelievable. It took her years and years and years of people saying no, 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 until she finally got a yes. And to cut a long story short, she sold It Cosmetics, a business she started in her front room. She sold it to L'Oreal for 1.2 billion cash, right? One of the things she said, which is really important, she was at a trade show and everybody was in these little 3-foot booths, kind of rammed in like sardines. And she could see the QVC stage over in the corner, but you weren't allowed to leave your 3-foot booth. So she could see QVC. She knew in her gut that she needed to go over there and make an impression, but the rules said you couldn't leave this booth. She left that booth. She went over there, she made an impression, and eventually she got on a QVC, and her appearance on QVC was what made her, right? After like 5 or 6 years of being in the business. What is your 3-foot booth? What is stopping you, right? What are you not doing right now that you know is holding you back? What is your 3-foot booth? I thought that was really important. And the other thing she said was, who are you pointing your microphone at? Going back to the people we surround ourselves with. So she said she had so many critics going through, but the worst ones to handle were her family, because you can't just get rid of your family. You can get rid of your friends, but you can't get rid of your family. But you can stop pointing the microphone at them. You can stop spending as much time with them. You cannot talk about these things with them when you're with, I don't have to talk about alcoholism being an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system while I'm with my mum and dad. I can turn that microphone away and I can use it for now. And that will help build a better relationship with those people. And it will give me less angst, So check her out. She's a pretty cool girl. Some random notes to finish off with. Add more value to the people you want to get close to. So I'm not saying we should fake manufacture friendships. So when we get rid of people in our lives that we no longer want to be in our lives and they don't service us, I think we have to put an intention into who we want our new friends to be. Whether we have visualization, whether we have affirmation, whether we meditate on it, whether we just rely on the new aura we have as a striver. But we need to put some intention around the people that we want to be friendly with. And whether that's in business or whether that's in life. And I kind of know the people I want to hang out with, right? So you've got to add more value to their lives in order for them to notice you. And don't go to somebody and say, hey, how can I help you? So earlier on, we said, if you want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, if you want to be a striver, then find someone like me who knows how to do it. But don't go up to them and say, how can I help you? Because now you're giving me work. And I don't want that. I don't want to think about it. But show me how you're providing value for me. And then I'm more likely to want to be your mate, more likely to want to converse with you. Maybe you listen to this podcast and you turn it into an amazing video and you send it to me and say, what do you think about this? I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. And now all of a sudden we start a dialogue. We start to be, into each other, right? So I think that's really important when it comes to friendships and connections, is add more value to the people you want to get close to. Don't just reach out to them willy-nilly because it ain't going to work. A good example is this podcast. If I want Richard Branson to be on my podcast, I can't just email Richard Branson and say, Richard, do you want to be on my podcast? I might have to work at building a relationship with Richard Branson for 10 years before I get on the podcast. But it's understanding and through intention setting and thinking in the right way that happens. A lot of people talked about working backwards, thinking about being on your deathbed. So Bronnie Ware's top 5 regrets of the dying. What is it you will regret on your deathbed? I'm reading Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People for the second time because I'm writing an article on it. But he talks about it is visualizing your funeral. Who is going to be there? What's going to be on your gravestone? What music are they going to be playing? What's the mood going to be like? What is it? What dreams are you going to be left unfulfilled? And then write that script out and then say to yourself, what am I going to do now in the next 3 months to make sure that I'm going to mitigate that from happening? So work yourself backwards. And lastly, Lewis Howes, who has the School of Greatness podcast, he was on there as well. And one of the things he said that I thought was super interesting, he said, if you want a great podcast, you first got to have a real shitty podcast. And you've got to understand and accept that it's not going to be great for a good 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years of putting in that hard graft and honing it and changing it, you might have a great podcast. But you've got to be comfortable with it being shitty first. you know what Rachel Hollis said when she talked about writing her books that have sold millions of copies? Kim, this might be interesting to you. You know, to write a great book, you first got to write at least 3 to 5 really shit books. Like she'll say, people will come to her and say, wow, it was amazing that you wrote your first book. And she's like, I've written 5 books. But nobody even knew those other 5. But it took all that time and effort to produce that quality. And drinking is the same. People are expecting it to happen now. But as I keep telling people, Strive is a lifetime gig. It might take you 5 years of maintenance before you are able to walk in a pub and be trigger-free. 5 years. Now, I'm telling you now, if you're thinking about whether or not you should be a member of Strive, if that is occupying 1 second of your time, you're not going to be there. It's not going to work. All right, granted, you can go and find a different resource. I understand that. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't need to stick with Strive. So let me rephrase that. If you're thinking about not immersing yourself in a community of like-minded people to help you become a striver of any description, whether that be at This Naked Mind, Hello Sunday Morning, or whatever, you're never going to last the course. You've just got to get your mindset right. This is going to take me a long time to get there, but it's okay for me to put out shittier versions of myself until I get there. It's all right for me to have a drink as long as I didn't bring a towel and I didn't throw it in. Everything we talked about how to be a striver, if you've gone through all those motions before you drink, then that's all right, as long as you then learn from it and then pivot and change to do something different the next time you get triggered. But if these people are standing on stage and saying, the one mistake everybody makes is they look at us on this stage and they say, well, they're so successful. There's no way I could be this successful. But you weren't here when I was in the spot, when I was producing crap, when I was producing stuff to people who weren't paying any attention to it. Even Anthony Trucks. I looked at Anthony Trucks, he came on stage, and I said in my head, well, obviously you was going to do really well because you were an NFL superstar, which enabled you to pay the £20,000 that put you in Brendan Burchard's mastermind class. It then elevated you above everybody else to become a success. Until I heard that Anthony Trucks was a foster child and that he was beaten as a kid and forced to lick shit off people's boots, and that 0.00001% of foster kids become NFL stars. Most of them end up in prison. And here he is, an NFL star, and here I am going, oh, you've got it easy because you're an NFL star. Bullshit, right? You've got to realize that if you want a great business, you want a great life, you want a great podcast, you want a great book, you want a great vlog, you want a great Twitch stream, or whatever it is you want to be great at, you've got to start shit and you've got to be in it for the long haul. This is why it's so important to work on your theme. And this is why the intensive freedom module for me is super important. I know people land there and they're like, I'm okay. I don't need to work on my theme. I've already nailed it. I know what I want to do. But I would say that 80-90% of people don't know what their theme is. And get this, and I'll say this before I sign off. The reason I went to a subscription model on Strive, Craig and Kim will know this, is that not enough people were buying the intensive or the taster experiences, which meant that not enough people were getting that valuable content. So I created a subscription service of £40 a month. So now for £40, you can come on to Strive and you can take the intensive. That's why I did it. And I'm going to say it here, and I'm going to say it for moving forward. I'm going to offer a lifetime guarantee. So if you were on Strive for 5 years, whatever 5 years times £40 a month is, I'll give you your money back if you think you didn't get any value, right? So this isn't a money thing. You join because you'll get more value from what you're spending. But if you don't, I'll give you every penny back. But guess what? Only Kim, one person in the entire fucking world, has gone through 94 assignments of the intensive. One person. I haven't done the math yet, but there's 26 strivers at the moment. How many people are actually doing the intensive that have not done it before? How many are paid to pay for Strive that are not doing the intensive, right? It's very, very small. It's very minimal, right? Very minimal. So why is that? You know, why is it? Why aren't people doing that? And I think it's because people are not aware of, hey, this is a lifetime thing. how am I going to fill up this time of doing things, all the things that we've talked about in the last 2 hours? Boy, I didn't think it would go 2 hours. I only thought it would go an hour. I hope that it's been really helpful for you. I hope you can get a feel and a vibe of what I've learned in the last couple of days. I hope you can get a feel and a vibe of how valuable it is to pay the money to go to these events. You might say to yourself, an event might be like £1,200 or what. This was like a couple of £100. Why? Because I've been a member of his community for a long time, which is also something to think about. Like if you become members of a community, then you're very likely to benefit moving on in the future if you stick with them, right? But the money you will spend on these things over 2-3 days is nothing compared to the value that you'll get in terms of your own psychology and your own mental growth and how you can implement these things to benefit yourself in other areas. And as I'm doing right now in this 2 hours, hopefully, is helping other people grow as well. I hope you've all taken a ton of notes, either in your mind or on a notepad, and you'll be able to put plans in motion to learn from these great people vicariously through me. And if you've got any questions on anything that I've said whatsoever, then email me at thetruthaboutalcohol@gmail.com and I'll answer them. But before I go, Kim, Craig, I know I kept you for 2 hours, and thank you very much for being here live. I'm just going to unmute you both. Is there anything that either of you want to ask me before I sign off? Kim?
I've got something. Yeah. I've got lots of notes, so I've got to pick one question.
Wait there, Kim. I can't hear you.
Now?
Yeah.
I just took some notes on oversharing and what you were saying about the scars versus the wounds, and that the speaker had said that you have to pick your audience when you share the wounds and make sure that they're ready to hear those wounds. Whereas on Strive, I just wanted you to clarify. I know we've had this discussion before, and I have said I don't think there's any there's no such thing as oversharing on Strive, because everybody's there, you know, to be vulnerable and share and support each other. So when we're talking in a Strive context, and the person that's doing the post needs to start small and share the scars, and if they're going to share a wound, make sure they're ready for that. Does it also apply that the people on Strive need to be ready to hear the wound? Or is that more, in a Strive context, is that more the person that's actually sharing needs to be ready to share the wound?
I think great question. I'm still unpacking this and working through it myself, but I think what Natalie was talking about, she was talking about this in the context of teaching people, right? So if you're describing a real raw, emotionally laden experience that you're currently going through, and you're trying to teach that to somebody, you know, because you're using that story as a way to, and that vulnerability to connect with someone, then you might not be vivid enough to do that, right? So it might be better to choose what we'll call a scar incident, where you're emotionally, like you're hard, you can convey the emotions of sadness and fear, humiliation, whatever it is, with your body tone and language, but you're not going to collapse and fall apart. From the point of a listener, like Natalie was saying, some people might not be ready to hear you. With Strive, and we're going to do some work around values, mission statement, and what being a striver really means. For me right now, where I am at, and we'll have this discussion as a community, I think Strive is a place where anything goes. So we are fully comfortable with sharing anything, because it is what Natalie Hodson was saying was, it was those uncomfortable conversations that we never have on these taboo subjects that are causing us shame and problems. So a good example would be when I left my first marriage and got involved with Liza. It was the first time that I had ever seen another woman's naked body, or I had been naked in front of another woman for 15 years. The way that impacted on me was immensely bad. I suffered from terrible, terrible sexual dysfunction. And I need to be confident that when I'm on Strive, that I can talk about and share that story using the right type of language, and Strive accept that as, and the ones who are not afflicted or haven't been afflicted by sexual dysfunction, they just don't read it, they don't get involved in it, they don't have to. They can provide support for me if they want to, but they don't have to get involved in that conversation. And the ones where they're thinking, wow, you know, I don't have sex with my wife because I'm unable to sustain an erection, and I'm terrified of initiating sex with her because I feel like such a failure. That person is going to be so happy that I've talked about this, because now they're not alone and we can talk about it and it's not stuck in here. So, I mean, I remember once talking about sex on Strive, and a former Striver saying to me, if you keep talking about sex, I'm going to leave. And I dealt with it really badly at the time. I was more concerned about her staying. And I'm like, oh no, I've got to change what I'm saying. No. A lot of people say to me that I overshare. A lot of people say that I, as a leader of Strive, I shouldn't be talking about the things that are going on in my life at the moment. Yeah, I should, because I want to be real. So yeah, we will talk about this wider, and I'll start a community discussion about this. But I want people to be really super comfortable about talking what they want about. And equally, I want people to be able to turn around and say, like this person did, I don't want you talking about that. It's important that authenticity is there as well. But then we need to make it clear, well, you're in the wrong place. Because this is the place where we talk about all the things that people don't want to talk about, because we are in the business of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and in the business of talking about our shame, because knowing that that is going to allow us to be vulnerable. Yeah.
So if a striver is ready to share a wound on Strive, there should never, ever be a concern that those on Strive are not ready to hear that wound.
No, because we're not talking one-on-one, we're talking as a group dynamic, and you and I both know that there are people on Strive who will never be fazed by any wound. I will never be fazed by any wound. So let's say I'm the only person who will never be fazed by any wound. It's worth you talking about the dark recesses of your mind, because I will be there for you. Just me, I will be there showing up. That is a guarantee on Strive, that I will be there. And I'm not the only one. I would say the large percentage of Strivers, the majority of Strivers, will be comfortable listening and talking and processing anything we talk about. Do you know why I know that? Because we do that. And those people who are uncomfortable have already gone, you know?
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
No worries. Anything else?
I've got lots, but we better wind it up.
I've got the time if you are.
Okay. I did write something down just about what you create creates you. And Eric Thomas, what you were saying about that, and yeah, just identifying that what I say, as far as marriage goes, what I say is I want connection, respect, and intimacy. But what I do is I'm selfish and I don't put him first. So that was a real light bulb that you have to be responsible for what you're actually doing, not what you actually want in your mind, because you can think about it and have it very clear in your mind, but what you're actually doing is what matters. What you are creating is actually creating you. So I just wanted to, I kind of got that connection. So that was a bit of a light bulb for me. So thank you for that.
Extending upon that as well, I think it's important to think about, let's say that in your instance, you're, selfish is the wrong word, but let's just use it for the safety of time, right? Let's say you're being selfish in as much as you don't want to be intimate with your husband, right? Then that selfishness, because you become what you create, may not come back to you in as much as he's going to say, well, do you know what? I do this sometimes, actually, my inner child. Do you know what? I'm not going to have sex with you then, right? It might not come out in that aspect, but his selfishness or his lack of willingness to open up to you will come out in a different area, because you're doing your part in creating that in your relationship. And we know that we can't change your husband, right? So the only way that we can move forward is by thinking differently, which is what Strive is great for, right? It's great for getting us to think about things and having more clarity, because we don't drink anymore, and then taking action, and then kind of observing how that changes things. So let's say you take a lot of action, you become really intimate with your husband, you're doing all these different things to forge connection, but then nothing happens, and then you go to therapy and still nothing happens, then maybe you're flogging a dead horse. But we don't know until we start putting we take those small steps. We start small, and see where it goes.
Yep. Thank you.
Craig, you got anything?
No questions from me, Lee. There's a lot to unpack there, a lot to get through.
There's a lot in it.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it back and make a note of all the people you spoke about and investigate them further, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be... I started thinking to myself about how am I going to follow these people. Because we don't have social media with Strive. I don't know whether I want it, to be honest. My only social media is poker. I don't want to follow these people and then people be like, oh, this guy's a poker player, this guy's a poker writer, because that's not my intention moving forward. So it is. I think following the right people is really important, because you cut out all that noise and you can learn a lot from these. Okay, do you have anything else you want to say, Kim?
No, that's it. Thank you. If I do, I'll post.
Okay, folks. I hope that was really right. Okay, I hope that was really helpful for you. But just before I go, I'm going to pinch Kim and Craig while they're here. Kim, why should people listening to this join Strive?
I didn't get that question. Sorry.
Why should people listen to this podcast? Why should they join Strive?
Because if they want to really, really change their life long term and consistently, considering we're only on this earth for a very short space of time, this is the way to do it.
And Craig?
To stop drinking alcohol first, and then everything that follows from that, everything that you've talked about in this podcast.
Brilliant.
And the possibility is endless.
Are you just saying that, or do you feel that?
No, I feel it, definitely. It's what do you want to do with your life, and what's been getting in the way of it, and then putting things into action, like you say, taking action. Don't just think about it, do it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Craig. And thank you for the millions of people around the world listening to this podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.